are no oxen, the manger is clean, but abundant crops come by the strength of the ox. Proverbs 14:4. The Proverbs speak to me in a new way each time I read through them. About 2 or 3 years ago, I believe, I started reading a proverb a day, and I go in and out of seasons where I do this, but I always enjoy the times I read a Proverbs a day because I learn something new, a new value, or a new lesson each time I read through them. So let's dissect this one today as the Lord has been speaking to me about keeping a home and keeping children in that home. So I'm going to be making a daffodil cake in this video for my daughter's birthday. Her birthday is just around the time the daffodils start popping up from the ground in our area, reminding us that spring is coming. She was my first child born at home, and I remember sitting out on my front porch the day after she was born, holding her and looking out at the beauty of the daffodils lining our driveway. And she asked for a daffodil cake this year for her birthday. I discovered there actually is a such thing as a daffodil cake. I was honestly just planning to decorate one kind of like a daffodil, but that's what I'm making in this video today is a daffodil cake. It's like an angel food / sponge cake, and it uses the egg whites and the egg yolks, contrary to what just an angel food cake would use, just the egg whites. So it's perfect for this time of year when our hens start giving us more eggs just before spring. So let's chat as we make this cake together today. So back to the Bible verse about the oxen. We no longer plow our gardens with oxen, but in past times, an ox was a very valuable farm animal for anyone on a homestead or farm to own. If one did not have an ox or any farm animals to house in their barn, the stalls would stay much cleaner and there would be a lot less work to do, kind of what this proverb is talking about. Work like shoveling, waste, keeping water troughs filled, hay provided through the winter. However, in past times, this would mean there was not any power to get the fields prepped for an abundant harvest. An ox was simply necessary. I find this all too relatable to keeping a home and keeping children within that home. We could easily say where there are no children, the home is clean. What an utterly devastating statement that is. A life with no children. I truly could not imagine life without mine, and I guarantee any family would say that as well about their own children. And I'm almost certain that families that have prayed and longed for a baby and the blessing of a child would most definitely rather the messiness and busyness that children can bring rather than a perfectly tidy home. Children are by far the biggest blessing and gift from above. They are far more important than a perfectly clean home. Our society has somehow skewed us to think that we need all these methods to keep our home spotless and tidy. We need perfectly presentable homes if anyone ever stops by for a visit unannounced. Now, I will say that keeping a home well managed does have its value. We shouldn't live in piles of clutter and filth, of course, but I'm more so saying all of this, trying to encourage myself and others that a little mess should not drive us over the top if it was created by our sweet children in a moment of play, adventure, excitement, imagination. I've had times where I would get very anxious as I watched my children dump blocks on the floor, only to walk away and not even play with them. I've had them ask me to put the paint set out, the paint brushes, the paint mats, only to paint for all of 2 minutes and paint on themselves rather than on the paper provided. And I've let my toddlers help me cook numerous times only to watch them dump flour onto the counter instead of into the mixing bowl. I usually cut those clips out if I'm videoing and my toddler dumps the flour on the counter instead of the bowl. And even just today, I was cleaning the window above our couch, and it wasn't 5 minutes later, I had a child touching it, making a new set of sticky fingerprints on that window. I smiled and wiped the window once more after they left that area. One day I know I'll miss those countless fingerprints I find all over our home. So thankfully, when you grow in motherhood, all those little things I mentioned above start to bother you less and less, and you realize that most of them can be cleaned up in about 5 minutes or less. Oftentimes, we kind of blow it out of proportion in our head as we see the child making the mess. We can also use these instances to teach our children to help us clean up those types of messes, and they start to happen less often. So again, a home without children is going to be a lot tidier, a lot cleaner, but it's also going to be a lot quieter, a lot less joy and love and laughter. So back to tidying, this is actually much more manageable when you keep less things in your home. This has by far helped me the most in keeping our home and keeping children within it. As we've had more children, I've lessened our toys each and every time. Our home is now filled with little people, their giggles, and more quality time together, more than the toys and the items that are needed to entertain them. So back to letting children help us clean up in our stables, our homes. They are in our homes as a blessing, and while we don't want to be putting cleaning ahead of our children all the time, we obviously want to enjoy our homes as we live in them. So this does mean some level of cleaning and keeping up the home is necessary to some extent. I'm not saying perfection here, but basic cleanliness, surface cleaning goes a long way in this season of life with young children. Our current cleaning routine looks something like this. Every Friday we have a family cleaning morning, and I do a very small wipe downs and pickups in between throughout the week. This rhythm has changed over the years, but this is currently what is working for us. So my children and I take a couple of hours first thing after breakfast on Fridays to bless our home for the weekend. My children help me do all of this. However, I don't redo their jobs or fix their work in front of them as they are helping me. If my toddler wants to help me spray the mirror and wipe it off and she leaves some streaks, I may kind of show her a new technique and talk her through it, but I never redo it and let her see me do it in front of her. I let her job be the job and let her feel the accomplishment in that. My older children like to help sweep and use the dustpan. They often miss corners of dust in rooms and even drop some bits of trash from the dustpan on their way to the trash can. But learning to say thank you with praise and gratitude goes a long way in building confidence for our children around doing these little jobs. Again, I don't redo these jobs in front of them. If I need to go back and do something, I do it when they're not around. Yes, this takes more effort to invite them in and to redo jobs when they're not perfectly satisfactory as we sometimes want them done, but the reward is much greater in the end. Mamas, we have a home full of blessings. Yes, keeping our homes becomes more work as we have to clean and tidy more often, but we also have a home full of singing, laughter, joy, love, and pure excitement that comes from young children's hearts because of our children. Also, teaching our children to help us clean and keep our homes is definitely more work and takes a lot more patience and training, but in the end, the reward is much greater. It's much faster just to do things yourself rather than to teach your children, your young children especially, to help. What value are you offering them and spending time with them as you are teaching them these lifelong valuable skills? Where there are no ox, the manger is clean. Our homes will only be clean all the time if no one lives in them. Our kitchen will only be clean if no one eats in them. Our beds will always be made if no one sleeps in them. Our couch pillows will always be perfectly in place and fluffed if no one jumps around and plays on them. But what could be more important than having everyone in a home enjoying life together, laughter, meals, and time together? The ox brought strength for a bountiful harvest, and our children bring the joy for a beautiful life. I hope you remember this short little proverb about the ox. It's Proverbs 14:4. The next time you see a messier home than you would like, but you have beautiful children laughing and playing amongst it.